Welcome, everyone, to the Clocking Out podcast. It's a show about people who share their own personal journey that include making bold choices to clock out of situations to follow their dreams of career fulfillment and to live their best, most authentic lives. I am your host, Raymond Lee, and this podcast could not be possible without the support of Careerminds. Today, I'm excited to welcome Alice Rush. Alice started her career as a sales leader who later turned to entrepreneurship and career coaching. After obtaining her master's degree in counseling, she left what she describes as the corporate grind to embark on a 30-year career as an expert career counselor and coach. Alice later launched her own business called CareerU, and throughout her career, she's worked with thousands of individuals at varying points of their career and life journey. With the holidays fast approaching, Alice offers some sound advice to people who are stuck in their career and are looking to make a change in the new year. So without further ado, please enjoy Alice Rush and her clocking out story. Alice, welcome to the podcast. It's great to see you.
Great to see you, Raymond. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Alice, I am just so excited about our conversation today. I've looked at your background, and for context, you have spent your entire career almost in career counseling, career coaching, mentoring people about their careers. I know you have a clocking out story that you're going to share, which I'm excited to dig into, but we know that the holidays are fast approaching here. And, when I think about the holidays and taking time off, it's always an opportunity for individuals to sort of get a different perspective on where they are. We're entering the end of the year, going into the new year. And what better person to have as an expert coach who's been mentoring and coaching individuals, thousands of individuals throughout their careers, to provide guidance to help people sort of think about, how do I approach possibly making a change or thinking about making a pivot or doing something different. And so, really excited to dig into our conversation here today.
Me too.
So, Alice, what I'd love to do is just get to know you a little bit here. Tell us, where are you from? Maybe what your parents did for a living, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Palo Alto before there was this, it turned into Silicon Valley. I was raised by a dad who worked every day commuting from Palo Alto to San Jose, IBM. He was a Quarter Century Club member there, worked there for 30 years as an engineer. And then my mother, she was a concert pianist. She taught piano out of the house, which was cool. She had her own career, but also was there for us as kids growing up. And she went on to found the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District that conserved 50,000 acres around Silicon Valley, which, if you know Palo Alto real estate, very, very expensive now, but she could see that it was going to be turned into another LA if she didn't do something about it. So in our living room, it was a grassroots project. So I got to learn that anything is possible. She just felt that people needed a place to go for their mental health, to be out in nature and not have it overly developed where, this house upon house. So it got put on the ballot. And that was my upbringing, is going to city council meetings and mixing with, senators and assemblymen and doing door-to-door political campaigning and all that stuff, which is really cool. So that was kind of pivotal. And so I'm the youngest of four kids. But yeah, those were my parents. That's kind of my upbringing.
Wow, I love that. What a nice balance there, where you have your dad who spent decades in the corporate world working as an engineer. You had a mom who was a musician and also an entrepreneur who had obviously this desire to want to turn her talents into opportunities that would inspire and impact your local community. What a fantastic environment to grow up as a kid. So your dad was he worked in the corporate world. Your mom was a musician. At what age did you start to think about what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, really early, like in elementary school. I knew that I wanted to have my own sense of identity. I knew I wanted to outside a family. Like I knew I wanted kids. My
Mm,
sister never wanted kids. It's interesting how early we kind of know what our values are really early
hmm
on. She didn't want kids. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to be home with my kids so they, just be there, uh, but work part time. That's sort of my goal. And I wanted to, I don't know how I knew that, but I actually did an informational interview. That's what we call career research or feasibility of career options,
mm,
right? We do the informational interview. That's where we talk to somebody who's in a career we think we want to go into. I did that when I was in sixth grade with a friend that was a therapist. And I thought, how cool. She's making good money. She's working. She has a cottage out in the back of her house. She's there for her kids, but she has this career. And it was kind of like my mom, where she was there for us when we came home, but she had her students. She was a piano teacher. And I just
mm.
kind of liked that idea.
Yeah, I love that you had that early sort of visual of what you want and what you don't want based on, your family. And I love the idea of having your cake and eating it too, where it's like, you could be at home with the kids. You already started thinking about balancing home life with work life. And that started to sort of form in your mind.
Yeah.
And so, what ultimately did you decide to do with college and with your career?
Right. So initially, after that informational interview and then being a peer counselor in high school, I thought I was going to be a therapist, like an MFT. So I got my associates at community college in psychology, and my career counselor did a Myers-Briggs assessment on me, and he said that I was too like intuitive to do, like with the therapy work. I was more of an empath, and that I would take those problems home. He did not think that therapy was a good career for me because I had been working since I was 12. So he thought combining the knowledge that I had in the world of work with my wanting to do counseling, industrial psychology made sense. So that's what I majored in at Cal
Mm,
State Hayward. It was the only school in the nation that had undergraduate industrial psych. And then I did a minor in business. So
mm,
when I graduated, that was great because, again, remember, I was paying for my degrees. So I needed something that was marketable, and that I was able to get a job in outside
mm,
sales and help pay
mm.
for that degree before going on for the master's in counseling.
So, you now have your degree in industrial psychology, you have your bachelor's.
Yeah,
So, tell me about the first job that you
yeah,
had that came after your degree
that's a great question.
and
Yeah.
what did that look like?
Oh my gosh, it was just such a rude awakening to like corporate America and what, because I was always like this portfolio career, juggling all these jobs, sometimes three jobs and full time school. That was really exciting for me. And then all of a sudden, 8 to 5, but in seat, managed large corporate NCR corporation, right?
Wow.
And I had to commute all the way from Palo Alto to Berkeley, Telegraph and 51st was Oakland. That was insane. So I had like a 2 hour commute and an 8 hour day, and I was so exhausted I couldn't believe it. And it was outside sales. That was like you've got to deliver or you're out. And so there was a lot of pressure, And oh man, I could just feel how just people that go to work and have that kind of job every day, how hard it is. It's kind of like breaking a horse, I think, sort of like you gotta break down your
Hmm.
vision of freedom and just like nose to the grindstone.
That is so interesting. And I completely agree. I do feel like it's like breaking down a horse
Yeah,
because here you are, you're young, you graduate with your bachelor's degree, and you get your first job. It's with a big company, you're super excited. And then you get sort of pulled into this machine
yeah.
where you go through probably a really quick onboarding. You're driving your first day. I remember it. I
Mm.
remember my first day that was almost like that. It wasn't as bad as that, I have to tell you, because the commute for me was just 5 minutes from my house.
Okay.
But it's so, the way you just described that, how you just said, I thinking back those decades, you can feel it. I can feel it as you're describing it,
Oh,
and you don't know anything different, right? Like, as someone coming out of college, you probably said to yourself, yeah, I guess this is the real world. Our parents talk about wait until you get in the real world. And that's sort of that description. It's like, yep, this is the real world. And I don't like it.
no, I didn't like it. It was not intrinsically rewarding. So if you can imagine, here I am, kind of this, the counselor type, really caring, wanting to serve people, and it's all about me, and winning these trips to Hawaii and making my numbers and achieving. I mean, I did that. I did it and I was successful. I was like always in the top 3 or at least top 10 in the nation, winning trips to Hawaii, but I was miserable,
Hmm.
absolutely miserable. And I'm like, I just needed to be true to myself, and say, I can't live like this anymore. I've got to do something different.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Wow. So, so tell me, what did you do? Did you quit? What happened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And my parents thought I was crazy, realized that my dad, he actually had a creative side. He was a photographer and he did, he used to travel around, I think it was with Blackstone Jr. and doing some magic stuff. So he's a typical engineer like Leonardo da Vinci. They have lots of different aptitudes. But he sucked it up, right? And he worked there even though he didn't like to wear the suit and tie. He did it, right? So he raised us to be that way. And when he heard I was going to quit, when I'm winning these trips to Hawaii and getting all this recognition and all this money, and he just thought I was crazy. I definitely did not have the support there at all.
I bet your dad sort of felt like you you've earned you've earned this, right? You went to school, you worked hard, you even worked at an early age, at the age of 12. So you sort of you built this work ethic that aligned with your dad's work ethic, which he stayed at IBM for decades.
Mhm.
And you were just starting your career, and he probably saw you in him.
Yeah.
And that must have been a real struggle for him to see you walk away from something that on the surface any reasonable person would say you have your career ahead of you, but the fact of the matter is you were miserable. Like, there was no trip to Hawaii that was going to mask the feeling that you had about getting in the car and driving to that office.
It was just absolutely terrible. You wouldn't believe what they did to try to keep me. Though that just goes to show you how important it is for us to be authentically ourselves and to follow our heart's desire in our
Hmm.
careers, because it didn't matter I could go into the office so long as I made my numbers. Oh, the first thing they did for me is they allowed me to have my own building that they rented out in Redwood Shores. So I'd only drive 20 minutes rather than an hour. I had my own secretary. Can you believe that? My own secretary.
How
They don't
old
have
were
those
you?
things anymore. How old was I? I was, let's see, 22, 23 through 26, around that age.
That's
Oh yeah,
great.
my secretary's a little bit older than I was. But that was so cool. And then I could literally show up at the office like at 10 and leave at 3. As long as I'm making my numbers and then I'm out in the field, it really didn't matter how many hours I put in. Now, you don't start out that way. When you start out, it's grueling and you're there and you're managed by how many hours, as I say, the button seat management style is
Hmm.
definitely there. And you're in a bullpen, everyone can hear what you're saying and doing. But no, they really did everything they could, even the time flexibility. I mean, but I just could not, I could not do that anymore. I had to,
Mm.
go back, quit, and yeah. So, but definitely didn't get support from my family, um, and then I knew that I should research it more too, because my dad said you're going to be a poor social worker with that master's in counseling, and on the surface, Raymond, I mean, he was right. The salaries for social workers and counselors was pathetically low, and
Hmm.
everything looked grim, as far as the possibility of landing a job. But there's still this little message inside of me in my heart that I just and my soul, I can't explain it, but it's just this inner knowing that I have to do this anyway. I will find a way around. I just, I don't know how I knew that, but I really didn't feel like I had anything to lose. I could always go back and do sales.
Mm.
But I remember then meeting with, and I won't reveal his name, but he was known as the godfather of career coaching. And he was an expert in Silicon Valley, started his own business. He was very successful. You know what he told me when I said, I'm going to leave this job, even though I'm good at it. I want to go back and go back to school. What advice do you have? He told me I should go back to continue to work in that job that I hated. This is a career counselor. That I should go back until I had gray hair, because no one would respect me at the age of, I was 26 or 27, something like that, when I went back to grad school as a career coach until I had gray hair, and that I would never be able to get a job or be taken seriously, and that I should go back to this job and just basically suck it up. And I was appalled. This was my career research, the feasibility, and everyone was telling me it's a terrible job, it's
Mm.
depressing. People that were working out placement were getting divorces because it was so stressful. And, it was all just, but the real
Mm.
truth was that I think, we have to take that information and then decide what to do with it.
There's so many messages there that just resonate with me. First of all, I can't believe that the counselor had the audacity to tell you that no, don't be bold, don't take risks, stay safe, continue with that job, work at it for 30 years. And then, when you, and the fact that he said, when you get gray hair, I mean, obviously he
Yeah.
was, that was an analogy, because what if you never did get gray hair? But,
With hair
right.
dye.
Yeah. But the thing that I think is really interesting that you said is that you obviously listen to your internal intuition, and you you really had a sense of, just your gut feeling. And my sense is that you were probably saying to yourself at the time that when you play this forward, where you're now in, experience, and you're having similar conversations with people who were in the situation that you were in, you probably were saying to yourself, I would never give this kind of advice that this gentleman is trying to give me at a point in my career where I'm looking for someone to support me and lift me up. As a
Yes.
coach, you certainly want to provide some guidance, and use questions around helping me sort of navigate through those times. Like, what are some questions that he could ask you that sort of provide you with even more clarity of sort of how to hone versus put up an obstacle and a brick wall that limits your ability to follow your dreams, follow your passion. And so there's so many lessons there that I feel like are nuggets. And, if anything, it only made you, it's like the parent who wasn't the greatest parent. And it's like your kid says, I will never parent like that. And
Yeah.
it's sort of like almost like the same thing. And now you've been coaching for 30 years. And I'm sure, whenever someone has that question, which we're going to get to in a little bit, but the way you respond to it, you probably have that little image of what he said to you, even then, that pops up. That's like, yeah. So anyway, I
Right.
appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, you're so on target there with that epiphany that I do carry through in my coaching. And I actually have this, I used to have it framed. I don't see it in my office right now, but it's called Wet Blankets Through History. And it's amazing how many clients I have worked with and how easy it is for us to give up all of our personal power to just one naysayer or one person who says, you'll never make any money as a teacher, so don't even try. Or, that just points out this glooming picture of a career change. Or it could be our own internal critic message. But it's
Mm,
amazing how easy it is for us to give up our career dreams and give all of our power away to be. So when I coach people, I say, don't just talk to one person who's in that career field that you want to get into, or that entrepreneur and you want to start your own business and you're using them as a mentor. You got to talk to at least three people because they could be
mhm.
burned out, and you could shut down and just say, oh, he said I'd never make it because I don't have enough capital or whatever.
So interesting. Yeah, I completely agree. And I appreciate you saying that. So, Alice, I'm curious. You obviously made the change. You leaned into this new career. You got your master's degree. You started your own company at some point. And obviously, there's struggle that comes with that, right? Like, it's not, people stay in the grind of what you describe
Yeah,
because it's predictable. Obviously, it's not fun to some degree, depending on the kind of job you're in, especially when you're in a job that you hate. But I'm curious to know, how did you overcome the struggles early on? Because when you're starting your own business and you're doing the work that is much less in terms of pay versus what you're used to making in a big sales role, how did you overcome the challenges of, the ups and downs, and how did you persevere through that?
yeah, thank you for that. I have a pretty strong spiritual practice. I actually am a certified spiritual life coach. That came much later in my life, but at that time, I was doing the work and really. This is going to probably sound hokey, but I do believe in the power of prayer, and a lot of these so-called miracles happened to me because I had a student loan that was coming up and I needed to get a job right away. I did, imagine I'm now in debt because I had paid for my master's in counseling and I didn't have a job and I didn't have any experience. Other than I was a peer counselor in high school and I had the
Mm,
degrees, but I had just come from sales, right?
mm,
What did I have to bring to, what could I do? And I met with people in outplacement companies and that kind of thing. And, but I did, um, like I coach my clients, I approached the keynote speaker at the California Career Development Association conference in Southern Cal. And Betsy Collard, she had wrote the high tech career book and she was amazing. And she had
mm,
that, we had just got together for an informational interview and she gave me the opportunity to set up the first of its kind corporate career center inside Sun Microsystems. But it was only part time, right? And I remember I think I was making $20 an hour working part time, but I had this faith, right? I knew it was going to work out. And the month that I had to start paying back my student loan, and remember, I'm just like, I got to work full time to be able to pay
mm,
this and pay my rent and everything. All of a sudden, they offer me full time just when I needed it for this
mm,
project. It all came together. But I was like a lot of us do when we have to kind of figure out how are we going to make this work. I was interviewing, at colleges and, figuring out where I was going to fit. But then it all came together. So
mm.
that was amazing. That really was a sign to me that I'm supposed to be doing this work.
I wanted to comment on how you really have you rely on prayer and sort of the spiritual side and having
Mhm.
that balance where oftentimes we talk about head versus heart, and but if you have head, heart, and then there's a spiritual connection, so you're
Yeah.
open to see when there's opportunities. And so it's sort of like, I think that having that, people talk about the universe is kind of speaking to them, like they have a sense of
Mm.
where they are in a presence. And so when you're going through that career transition process where, let's say, you're laid off or even you're in a stuck position, a lot of times decisions are so much led with the head, right? Because you have bills, you have family, you have benefits, you have insurance, all those things are important. And you tap into the heart. But if you're open to the universe and the spiritual side, I think those three coming together really give you the clarity that you need to have the confidence to move forward. And so I appreciate you sharing that. Next, I would love to hear, and we are approaching the holiday season, and when you're during the holidays, a lot of people take that time as they're unplugging from their day-to-day grind, let's call it, and they're sitting at home, they're listening to a podcast, like they're really trying to unwind, and they're starting to think about what my life could look like that could be different than what I'm doing. And I wonder what advice you have for people who are contemplating making a change from something that they're doing today. And I guess with your experience and having lived through that throughout your career, what advice could you offer people?
I think one of the most powerful exercises that we have available to us where we can be really a mentor to ourselves. I mean, we don't have to go out and pay for a coach to go through this experience. And I have it on my website. It's free. It's an exercise that's been around for over 60 years, called by a number of different names. I call it on my website rewarding experiences. but it's a time of reflection to sit down, think through, and record what are your most rewarding experiences or positive experiences that you've had throughout your life, starting with one in childhood, and childhood could mean pre-elementary, elementary, junior high, even high school. That one is really powerful, but to come up with 5 to 10 not accomplishments. I don't like to use the word, words are very powerful. Accomplishments to me triggers ego, and ego is not where we want to go with this. It's like what you said, more heart-centered.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it rewarding for you? And so when you write down these it's really hard for my clients to do this. They're like, oh, I can't think of anything. And then it starts to flow. So if you're feeling stuck, it's okay. Once you get going, it'll be okay. You want to have at least 5, but you'll see recurring patterns and themes in your stories.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see, ask yourself, what did that story reflect in terms of my values, skills, and interests, and my personality? So, for example, I had a client who said, I taught my mom English when I was 7 years old. Okay, that's really awesome. So what we hear from that story is that you like to help others, you value personal growth, you value being in service, you value your relationships, you have making a difference values, you like the tangible results, the before and after of what you do, and so forth. So you write down these themes, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
Other things that I think are important for just contemplating what you could change is, taking a values inventory. Again, I have one for free on my website. You could just Google one. I'm sure any old values inventory would do. And out of all the elements of our best work, so we have our values, skills, interests, and personality style. All of this can be used in discovering what we want to be when we grow up. What is our life's work? What do we really want to do if we're not sure? But the most powerful are those values. If we want to get that sense of, I can't wait to get up and go to work in the morning, we got to have those values satisfied. But you see, Raymond, those stay at the subconscious level. So we're not usually aware of our values unless we've had a crisis in our life. And then they come up to the conscious level and we're able to evaluate them. Hence the midlife crisis. It's when a lot of people come to career counseling at that time because they've had a crisis. What's really most important to them is now up there on the conscious level, ready for them to evaluate.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. You said a lot of powerful things around values and interests. And I love this idea that you articulated around how individuals have this sort of wake up moment. COVID was that in many regards, where people are in a reactive state in terms of when those values sort of come from the subconscious to the conscious. And I think it's important that we should sort of do a values and interest health check, if you will, where you don't wait for that time to come. So during the holiday season, when you're reflecting, listen to some podcasts and absorb some content that align with some things that connect to your values and your interest, and then start to think about things that provide you with those rewarding experiences that you described. And then you could potentially be a little bit more proactive in terms of what would end up bringing you happiness in your career. And I've heard this a number of times where if you have that traumatic situation or that crisis, at that point, it's too late. like, why wait for that experience to come to sort of propel you into making a change? Let's start sooner. And so I really love your example, and we will provide all of your information about your website and these assessments that people can get for free. So I appreciate you sharing that. Alice, I absolutely loved our conversation today. This has been just so wonderful. You've provided me with, just so much goodness and love and advice. To I've learned a lot just in terms of myself and in terms
Oh,
of my career and not waiting. I think one of the messages here is, why wait? And so even at an early age where you had to make that decision of whether, you were going to work for the big corporation or you were going to work on your own terms, the fact that you, at such an early age in your 20s, I mean, I remember my 20s, forget about it. Like, I was just still trying to figure my stuff out, and you had a plan and you were looking to someone for advice and you had to go off on your own. And so I really appreciate you, um, really kind of bringing your journey to life here. It's so inspiring.
oh, thank you for that.
So anything else that you want to share? Anything you want to share about how people can find you, get in touch with you?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Above and beyond that, I just want to say to everyone that's listening around the holidays, and you're contemplating maybe a career change or just career enhancement or just working with significance, to just contemplate what it is that you think would bring you the greatest joy, and then write down why not.
Mm,
What are those fears that you have? And then think about, are those real? I
mm,
love Byron Katie's work. She always questions everything. Is that true? She has us ask, is that true? Or are we responding based on fear or
mm-hmm.
groupthink or naysayers, or like what I said, wet blankets? But always challenge that fear, because oftentimes it's not smoke and mirrors. It's not
Yeah.
real. And so I just encourage everyone to challenge their fears, and any books of inspiration. I've certainly utilized those in my own life to persevere through difficult times. And like you said, Raymond, it's all about getting the heart, mind, and spirit together in making those superior business decisions or career decisions. That's just
Mm,
like that was such a poignant comment that you made.
yeah. It's like the
Um,
Holy Grail.
yeah,
It's the
right.
Holy Grail.
Yeah, love it, love it. So, career with a letter U is my federally registered trademark, CareerU.com. You can reach me. That's the website that has the free assessments. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, thank you for having me today. It was such a pleasure. I adore you. I'm a huge fan
Aw.
of who you are and how you show up in the world as a very brave and authentic leader. And I'm so grateful to have met you and spent some time today. So thank you.
Oh, that's so nice. I appreciate that. That means a lot, and it's the rewarding aspect of what keeps me doing this every day. And so I really appreciate that. And thanks everyone for listening. Until next time. Hello, Raymond again here. Thank you again to our sponsor, Careerminds, a global provider of outplacement and career development services. And if you'd like to connect with me about your own career journey, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, as well as find me at Instagram at raymondlee.co. Until next time, remember, if you're stuck or unsure of your career or future, and you think it's time for a change, ask yourself these 3 questions. Does my career or work make me feel alive? Am I doing the things that matter to me most? And am I creating value for myself and for others? Until next time.